Here you go, mate. Well, what's your name?
Peter Maxwell.
Peter Maxwell. Where are you from, Peter?
Queensland, Australia.
Okay, how old are you?
66.
And whereabouts are you now?
I'm in the BIWF, the Bureau of Immigration Detention Centre, Warden's Detention Centre.
That's in, whereabouts is that?
Manila.
In Philippines?
Yeah, Manila.
In Philippines?
Yes.
Okay. And you've been here for how long?
4.5 months.
4.5 months. And the crime you committed to be in here?
Overstay.
Overstay of visa?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And what's the general timeline for someone to be in here just for simple overstay?
Minimum of 6 months, and usually around the 2-year mark.
2-year mark for overstay?
Yep.
Okay. It's a pretty long time for no crime.
I don't consider it to be right, but yeah.
So obviously that's if you're fighting the charges, is it?
There is no charges to fight. I mean, it's just you're automatically convicted.
And so that's just normal processing time. Could be up 1 year or more.
Well, can be 10 years. I mean, there's no set time. This is just the way it is.
Okay, so you've got no idea when you're getting out. You're just sort of in limbo with your life.
I'd give it about 5 years for me because I have a case.
Okay, but that's a separate issue, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Okay. And you know of the medical treatment here. How good is the medical treatment here?
Absolutely none. I mean, I haven't seen a doctor since I've been here.
Okay. So if you're sick or something, obviously they take you to hospital then, do they?
No, you get to see the medical people that are here. They're the medics, obviously training, I guess, to be a medic or to be a doctor or to be something. And they will assist you. They don't have the drugs though. You have to buy your own drugs.
You have to buy your own drugs?
Yes.
So what if you have no money?
If you have no money, you don't get the drugs. Yeah.
Okay, so they won't supply any medication?
No.
And what about medical treatment? If you had to go and have an ultrasound or something, they pay for that?
No. Everything, when you leave here, everything has to be, you have to have the money yourself, otherwise you don't go, they won't take you.
Okay. So they detain you here, and then they detain you here, and if you become ill or something like that, basically what will happen if they're not supplying anything?
You die, I'd say.
You die?
Yeah, well.
Has that happened to anyone here?
Yes. 2 Australians, one nearly died. He had tuberculosis, nearly killed him. Just skin and bones in the end, but he just pulled through.
Okay, he caught tuberculosis in the facility?
Yes.
And okay, was he the only case, or is it?
There were other cases, but he was one of the worst ones.
Okay, and they've got special isolation rooms, or was he taken somewhere else?
No, he was in an isolation room here with virtually no medical treatment other than the drugs that he got. Oh, he had to pay for some of his own as well.
Okay. So when you just say isolation room, it's a proper like a quarantine isolation room, or just a separate room?
No, it's just a bit of a shed on top of the hill here.
There's a shed on top of the hill.
Yep.
Is it sealed off? Like can
Well, he had to move out. The rats were getting too bad in there, and then they started killing the rats, and then the rats all died, and the place absolutely stunk. So he did manage to move out of there into another area, another medical section.
Okay. And the other one, you said someone died recently, is it?
There was an Australian that came in. David John Buckley from Queensland, Australia, came in. Was about 81 years of age. He wasn't young. He was of very good health when he came in. He's walking. He had problems walking, and his mind. He didn't have a very stable mind.
Just let him around. Right. Shoot back up.
Yeah. No. He was. His thinking just a lot of the time he wasn't quite there. He didn't realise he was in a lock-up here, and he thought Maria was coming to pick him up.
Okay, Maria obviously is his partner.
That's the one, yeah.
So not thinking what he had dementia or Alzheimer's or something? Or?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, so basically he didn't know where he was or what he was doing?
No, he didn't realise he was here. He had no idea he was in jail. He had no idea he wasn't leaving. It was just, he should have never been here.
And how old was he?
About 81, I believe.
Okay. And when was he here roughly? When was he brought here?
It was January, probably early January. In the first week in January would have been brought here.
This year, 2024?
Yeah, correct.
And you said he died?
Yes, I did get to see him after the embassy. The embassy did see him as well. I pointed out to the embassy that he was here. They weren't going to see him, but in the end they did. They weren't even going to see the Australian with tuberculosis. They said they weren't allowed in the medical section. I told them that was rubbish. I said, it's your right, you should be seeing him. And eventually they did. I told the guy the day before they came, I said, the embassy's coming. And he said, oh, good. He said, I'll ring them. And he did get to see him. So yes, it did work out well for him, even though they can't help him. Of course, the embassy can't help him much here.
And what did he actually die
of? He died of pneumonia.
Pneumonia?
Yeah.
Okay, he had that when he came in, did he?
No, it's something you get when you've got no clothes and you get cold water thrown on you on a regular basis with no clothes.
Okay, so he was, you said, naked?
Yes, they didn't. When I went out to see him, he was naked, leaning over a table. This was about a week before he passed away. But his major problem was he was incontinent. He was shitting the bed at night, that sort of thing. So basically, what they did is they got rid of him, basically.
So they left him naked and throwing cold water on him?
Well, they were throwing, and they did give him a diaper for some time, but I think at the end they didn't worry about the diaper. And maybe they didn't even put him to bed, I'm not sure on that.
So they left him naked, slouched over a table, throwing buckets of cold water on him, which caused pneumonia, and basically killed him.
Well, that's basically what happened, yeah.
So was he given any medical treatment for the pneumonia?
Not that I know of. I never saw any medical people go out there, but they probably did. I mean, I wasn't the whole time watching, but yeah.
Right, okay. And he obviously died in hospital, did he?
No, nobody, supposedly his heart was still beating when he left the gate, supposedly.
Okay, supposedly his heart was still beating when he left the gate?
Yeah.
Okay. So what, he was walked out to a ambulance or something, did he?
Yeah, they did have him stretchered. He wasn't getting any help. He had no oxygen or anything going into him. Nobody was working on him to help his breathing or anything. I'd say he was basically gone before they even took him out through the gate. Okay. I don't think there was a chance he was still kicking there.
Okay. I did hear reports an ambulance picked him up. They took him straight away, or?
I don't think so. I think the ambulance stayed at the gate for quite a while. Apparently, I couldn't see it the whole time. They closed everything off, so we couldn't see it from here.
Okay. And there was also reports of one of the medical team passing out and fainting.
Yeah, one of the medical ladies did have a few problems. She got a bit faint, and they had to look after her. She was in a bad way, but yeah.
Right. Okay. So, what would you define that as? Natural causes, death, murder? What would you call that?
I presume his life would have kept going for quite a while. I mean, it wasn't as though he had any problems really with his health when he came in, other than the fact that he couldn't walk. and as you say, he was either a bit demented and his thinking wasn't quite right. But he did tell me about his life. He did tell me he came from Cebu. He told me to look him up on the internet. Bucko's story. He remembers doing that video on the YouTube. He remembers his brothers and sisters' names in Queensland. He remembers his bike riding days. He remembers a lot of stuff. But he was deteriorating. He was going backwards. They got me to look after him for a while, chat with him when he came out and all that sort of thing, because it was taking up too much of their time, and I was a little bit helpful, but in the end they put him back in the medical section and I wasn't allowed to get to him anymore.
Right, okay. And the embassy, they were aware of his state?
I did tell the embassy. I did send him an email, told them what was going on, and when the embassy came, I spoke with the embassy. I said he is in a particularly bad way. I said he wouldn't have long to live. They said to me, they said, listen, we cannot talk about him. I said, but I can. And there was a Filipino in the office there keeping an eye on us the whole time and listening in, and they basically told me to shut up, and they never had any time for me because they had a lot of people to see that day.
Okay, and do you know how he ended up here?
How do you mean how he ended up?
Well, who put him in this facility? Who's responsible for putting him in
apparently
here?
he was a fugitive, and the Sydney Herald, Sydney Morning Herald, did a thing on him the next day. Did it was an article on him saying he was a fugitive wanted in Australia, and had been since the 1980s.
Right, because I believe there was reports that he was brought in brought in here or detained by the Australian Federal Police.
I believe that to be the case, yes.
So
but his passport had just run out. He did actually, he said he was coming to Manila to renew his passport.
Alright, thank you very much. Thank you.
Right.